Chapter 5, Minion of Darkness. Barely escaping from Odeon, the Black Dragon squad had little choice but to flee from the larger enemy force. But Ishtar gave much faster pursuit than they had anticipated. He finally caught them in the beastie Badlands. They've got nowhere left to run. Could their heroic resistance be at an end? Red 2 standing by, all 4 lit and in the green. Welcome back to YuGiOh, the Falsebound Kingdom, and you know that we're not going to wind up getting busted just yet because, well, we've still got to have the climactic battle with Kaiba. Anyway, we probably should introduce some new units. Let's actually see what we've got. Wow, look at Axe Raider leading the way. So, we've got Metal Zoa, which we can use. We have Sengenjin, which has actually pretty decent AP off the start. It's Mountain Adept, which is fairly handy. We wound up also... There's Castle of Dark Illusions, which we've met earlier. Flame Cerberus, which is... Its AP is actually better than I thought, maybe because of the close compatibility to Joey, but it kind of sucks otherwise. Swamp Battle Guard, which will need to level up at some point. I can do that in Yugi's story. Battle Ox. At last I can actually use Rabbit Horseman, so we'd probably better meet that this episode if we haven't already. Invitation to a Dark Sleep. And a whole bunch of other ones that have popped up along the way. Serpent Night Dragon should be in there somewhere. There we are, Noodle Dragon. Wasteland Adept. And Swordstalker should be around too. There it is. I always forget what I'm looking for with that one. So yeah, we've picked up plenty of monsters. We only have a handful of fusions to go. We've got Rabbit Horseman. We've got... Definitely got Gate Guardian to go because we don't have all the bits and pieces for that. We've got Crimson Sunbird. And there's one more that I've forgotten. It'll come to me eventually. I know I'll get there eventually, but for now we can just sort of move on. The teams don't really need to change. We have pretty solid setups as is. Can probably keep that build for Garuzas for the time being. Because that's pretty solid. That's looking pretty solid. Tristan's doing pretty well. So, doing pretty solidly all round. Let's get ourselves prepared for the next one.
Joey, we can't seem to lose them. What do we do now? We keep running, that's what. What else can we do?
But if we don't take some of them out now, they'll have us completely surrounded.
I didn't think they'd really follow us out here. They're too darn persistent.
So, we have to fend off another array of enemies, and this time we're fighting Marek, Ishizu, and Odeon. We've got flyers coming in, and we will have quite a few ground units. So as always, prepare our defenses, get set to take on the enemy, and we will have to just smash our way through, basically. So Marek will be our main antagonist, with a fairly competent team, but if we've got some good Darklands monsters, we can rip through this one. Worth noting, we have only one monster we can recruit here, and then we don't have to worry about any more for some time. Oh boy, we are going to have a bit of work ahead of us. Who should take first watch? Don't think it really matters. But I'll set Giselle up. Then Malairica I'll save for a little later. Right, we should be good to go. So we'll have a fair bit of fighting, as you can see. Ishizu's team is taking the lead. Who's that lagging behind? That's Odeon, just sort of lumbering along because Circuit is really, really slow. Now, the monster we get in this mission will help us with something back in Yugi's story. That's right, we recruit Gemini Elf Quechua. So we can wind up getting her, we can go back to Chapter 7 of Yugi's story, and wind up recruiting Laura. Alright, better get ready to build our barricade so we'll be set. Ishizu, as we've seen, can be an incredibly tough opponent. But I should be able to work past that. I think she's got a pretty similar team to what I have given her in Kaiba's story. Alright, guns are going. Alright, does she have much healing? No. We do not wish to spill blood needlessly. Surrender. Unfortunately for Shizu, she's going to run into a bit of trouble. She actually has her recruitment team. So, target will be Magician of Faith. So, burning up 2 AP to hit one monster. It doesn't even get a boost. A little bit of a disadvantage, but there you go. Yeah, I'm not getting my turn anytime soon, it seems, which is a pain in the backside. Alrighty-o. So, Moonlight Extinction. The special attack of Orion the Battle King, which we hadn't encountered. Moonlight Extinction hits all and reduces their attack. Crap. That is what you might call a problem. Okay. So, we're looking to take out Magician of Faith very quickly. Because we definitely don't want anybody that can resurrect sticking around. Ooh, critical. That's right, it's a spellcaster. I forgot. Right, so... Oh, that's right. I forgot. And... well, let's just try and take him out. I'm fumbling a little bit here. Because I forgot that... I forgot about Status Guard. Oh, well. Let's wait, let's heal, and then let's kill it. Might as well keep the team fresh for the next one that comes along. I'll have Giselle take that lot, then I can have Tristan take a couple and Malaira can take a couple. So, I've probably discussed a whole range of topics that aren't Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, as I've said, I really kind of struggle when it comes to discussing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because, well, I don't really have, as I said, a lot of experience about the new stuff. I'm kind of left high and dry because I really have no understanding of everything that goes on. We've got one front runner. Oh, okay, we'll put Tristan in for this one. Draw Giselle out for the next ground user, and we're away. Marvelous and Wing Eagle can be a pain in the backside. But we'll do fine. So yeah, I really don't have a lot to say about that because sort of this is my main familiarity. I don't have a lot of knowledge of the way the new formats of the game are set up. I'd be utterly lost if you actually asked me to wind up explaining Link monsters and how all that works. Hold on a moment. I mean, I sort of know the very basics, but that's it. Wait, level 1? Marvelous gets level 1 magic. There you go. So yeah, I really don't understand a lot of the complicated stuff about the way the game goes these days. and I certainly don't have a very good understanding of the metagame. I'd be completely lost. I just would sort of have to guess and go, wow, that looks fairly impressive. How does it all come together? Because I mostly stopped in the early days of Xyz summoning and things like that, so I am well and truly out of the picture with all of the ridiculously complex stuff that came afterwards. Mostly I'm disappointed that pendulum summoning seems to be very, very heavily archetype based, because pretty much what I want is a bunch of machine pendulum monsters that aren't Clifforts, Cliffort the big red dog, haha, that will actually allow me to put things like Barrel Dragon on the field. I mean, I do have a deck that is actually focused around those Barrel Dragon cards. It is fusing, that's good, so we've got a bigger target. Okay, game, I have a question. When I use polymerization, my monsters don't get to immediately attack. But when your monsters do, they do get to immediately attack. Why? Alright, so Crimson Sunbird has no abilities. So we can pretty much just wail on it. But yeah, like, I'm really, really stuck outside a lot of the... Well, it is much, much earlier, going way back when. Wait, no, it had no items. Hang on, what was I thinking? Well, that missed, that's good. You idiot! Of course it has abilities. It has super stamina. And status guard. Ugh. Now, why doesn't what's-its-thing, Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon, have status guard? Is it really just that useless? That's a bit of a pain in the backside to note that. Dungeon Worm is admittedly my main healer. But I am afraid that I have no really great stories. I don't have any really fancy decks. I don't know all the combinations. I just sort of have to sit there and nod with a lot of it. I do prefer the older, slightly jankier approach to things, and I'm not being a bit of a grumpy old man, because I'd love to play some of those newer decks. Like, I would absolutely love, for example, to play the Cosmo archetype, because it combines the Wizard of Oz, and I have a bit of a fondness for the Wizard of Oz because that was the school production in back in year 10, and Star Wars. And I absolutely love Star Wars. Plus, it's got psychics and machines in it. It's like an archetype that was built for me. But I just don't have the budget to build things on the second-hand market. It's a pain in the ass that so many cards can wind up as, like, secret rares when there was something different in something easier to find in the OCG, or they're TCG exclusives that are super expensive because they can suddenly wind up being splashable, or they're just the big metagame deck and things like that. It has kind of made it hard. And because everything sort of felt so confusing to me, I lost a lot of interest. I had a lot more fun with the Cardfight Vanguard, and I still do. It can be a pain in the ass getting stuff for those decks, especially when the deck I like playing does get a bit of a metagame power-up. It's like, that was the thing that bugged me with Grand Blue for a while in the G era, because I loved playing that. I played it through that sort of stretch when they didn't have a lot of support. Due to the sort of janky way the English releases for the first era wound up coming out, Booster Set 6 was actually released third for international audiences. So they wound up having... Like, Grand Blue wound up having some really good support because they got a lot of stuff early. But then they had a huge drought until we finally got Booster 13, where they got some really good stuff. And then there was another drought again until G era. And that was a bit sad. Let's get Giselle in. Okay, so Giselle's gonna go. Giselle's going in, then Erika. Wait, you're. Giselle, get back in the base. Tristan's supposed to be there. Ah! Went too early. Alright, well, I'll just have to do some very creative rearranging. So Tristan will do this. Molly Erika will have to do the... I'll have to do the next one. Is it my turn yet? Good, they did actually go after Dungeon Worm. I need to heal Dark Chimera. There we are. That is... well, that's actually not too bad because this team can be a right pain in the backside. And the fact that I've got a Darklands monster on there just makes life a hell of a lot easier. Well, it worked out. It just didn't go like I wanted it to. Which is sort of the story of this sometimes. Let's see. And we'll finish him off now. Yeah, so Granblue didn't get a lot of support for a long time. There were huge gaps, but the moment their G-era support hit, everything changed. They were incredibly popular and they were incredibly strong because they actually were a bit easier to balance among other more powerful decks, and they were allowed to have those really strong combinations of calling things back from the drop zone. Alright, run. Right. And they've sort of gone from strength to strength since. They can generally remain a very powerful deck because of that graveyard recursion. They've been very good in V-Series as well. There we are. Now Giselle can take care of the next team and then I'll get Male Erika in. Having that ability to call things from the drop zone is kind of a double-edged sword for pretty much any deck, as you'd know. Because, of course, with the fact that Granblue often mills itself and they have to have a certain number of cards in the drop zone for their effects, it kind of creates the issue that, well, you've got to be able to put cards in the drop zone, but at the same time you risk losing triggers and things like that. All those important cards that let you do more damage. Because it can be a pain in the backside when you wind up milling all those vital triggers that just leave you at a significant disadvantage as a result of it. Who's the biggest threat on the team? Certainly, probably Summon Skull, because it has Hinatama as well. Admittedly, I probably should have attacked it, but... there we are. That'll keep things well held. And then we just pile on the damage. Yeah, losing triggers is always a pain in the backside for Granblue players. It's the same deal with the Dark Irregular. But at the very least, if you do wind up losing the triggers, there are cards that, for Granblue that will can let you reuse cards from the drop zone, like get them back to your hand in some way so you can at least retrieve those triggers to use for guarding. Very handy in all fairness. It does give them quite a bit of an advantage because they can get those important cards back that allow them to defend themselves. They can get key cards, like if they want to ride in another grade 3, they can get those back. It's a significant advantage for them. And they also have the benefit that they can provide a lot of tech-ins because they've got so many different options. Like, you need something, you put it into the drop zone. They've got the ability to do that. you can just resurrect whatever you need, and it's really, really handy. In some ways, they do have their disadvantages. Like I said, they lose their triggers, and they don't necessarily have a lot of multi-attack potential. It's probably their biggest weakness. They can get overrun by decks that really provide combination assaults. But, on the bright side, their incredible versatility and the fact they can hit pretty well in terms of power gives them a great advantage. They'll generally defend very well, and if you don't have to worry about, say, all those multi-attack rush-down decks, you can essentially control the way the battle flows. You can shrug off the big attacks by recovering certain cards, and then you can just hit back with some of your most powerful combinations, especially as the game has gone on. It's strategies like that which would probably be my best style of deck when it comes to the Vanguard card game, and maybe YuGiOh. I prefer decks that give me a fair few options along the way. That's part of why I enjoyed the Synchro decks, because I usually had some pretty solid combinations that I could use, and there were simple but effective ones for the Psychics to pull off. Like Overdrive Teleporter, as I've mentioned, essentially being pay 2,000 life points to summon Hyper Psychic Blaster. Not a problem whatsoever. Very, very handy. But then you could switch things around to go into all their other synchro options, you could combine things. And while there were certain key strategies which would work a lot better, depending on what deck you wanted to run, I still got a hell of a lot of mileage out of all those decks. I absolutely loved playing them. I love some of those machine decks and the combinations you can do. Like, the way that the new Dark Machines are set up. All the stuff that lets me use Barrel Dragon really well. I think it's time to get Joey on the move down here. Because we have our last adversary, and then we can discuss... I think I did put Gemini Elf's profile in there, so... we're pretty well set. I do want to get rid of you, because this team is a right royal pain in the rear. Alright, now. Well, we'll just have to shrug this off. Yeah, I always like playing those decks in Vanguard and indeed in YuGiOh that actually allow me a few combination techniques along the way. It's not like it's just the very basic turn cardboard sideways things. Or I don't really like decks that are just a result... What is its special attack again? Slow down all enemies and reduce their action points. I'm probably better off using Hinatama. Yeah. It's nice to have a degree of interactivity. It is worth noting that with Vanguard, you generally get to play your abilities. And and the end result is basically all to do with how your abilities match up against your opponents. There aren't very many this interrupts what your opponent is doing decks, in all fairness. Because it can be a real pain in the backside if you can have the ability to disrupt things. Because everything relies so much on the hand in Vanguard, when you've got those cards that... when certain decks got cards that could wind up ripping cards out of the opponent's hand, it got a bit too powerful. It was a real pain in the ass to deal with, and because G-Era Nubatama wound up going too far with that, they basically wound up rebooting the format into the V-Series. A lot of the V-Series stuff got too ridiculously powerful, so they wound up basically changing everything to do with that. And that's where we got the Overdress series. which is enjoyable. It's a bit slower paced in terms of development, but I think the lack of power creep is actually a good idea. And the fact that they've got various alternate bosses that don't, strictly speaking, replace the old bosses. Crap. Oh well, I've got plenty of time to revive. We'll get that sorted out in due course. But yeah. Ooh, nice critical. But yeah, the fact that you can sort of switch, you're going to be able to switch around some of the bosses. You can still stick with certain different styles, depending on what you want to play, is a really good advantage with the overdress format. On the other hand, with YuGiOh, you don't always they're really messing with the turn order. Fairy's Gift is just sitting there. And that'll finish it. But yeah, YuGiOh, you don't always... There are certain old cards which are like Insta-Splash. You can use them easily and effortlessly. They are just significantly advantageous. They will always be useful, or they will always wind up on the limited lists. On the other hand, a lot of decks wind up getting really, really crap really fast, and you actually have to do a whole lot of stuff. You'd have to do a whole lot of crazy stuff to make a lot of things relevant. It's kind of unfortunate. The metagame moves so fast. Like, you're going to have pretty much everything wind up being rendered useless just a couple of formats later because of... I don't know, because either the ban list has wound up hitting them, or the new stuff is just so impossibly broken that it screws with everything. It's just bizarre. It's really, really bizarre sometimes. It can be incredibly difficult to handle, but if you do sort of figure it out, you can actually get some pretty impressive decks. Of course, the only problem is there are often some decks that are just so far ahead. By the way, Odeon is telling Joey, you will pay for your insults during last encounter. Who proofread this? Seriously, this is getting embarrassing. There are heaps and heaps of typos. It's, where is it? One of the famous ones, I will not go out because slowness today. That's in Nightmare Troubadour. I don't think they proofread their games with any degree of accuracy. And it gets slightly embarrassing. Good. Odeon doesn't have any healing, so I can just beat up on them as much as I like. Yeah, not being able to keep you... I mean, it is a natural... It is a natural occurrence as a result of card games changing and the need to make things a bit stronger. Because we look at... If we look back at Volume 1, as I've mentioned about Hitotsume Giant, it was literally the most powerful 4-star monster in the set. The strongest monster you could summon with no tributes way back in Volume 1 had 1200 attack. Hitotsume Giant tied with Silverfang. Silverfang had 800 defense, Hitotsume Giant had 1000. So that was the caliber of power you were up against. And things gradually changed, because it's worth noting, until Volume 3, I think it was, I don't think there were any effect monsters. Monster effects have always been implemented in a slightly janky fashion, if I'm going to be honest. At least as far as the... Well, they were implemented in a janky fashion as far as the anime went, because you'd have all the attribute and affinity stuff to worry about. And even then, when it comes to the card game, some monsters will actually wind up having much less powerful abilities along the way. Some cards will be significantly powered down from what they were in the anime, like Card of Sanctity. Both players draw until they have 6 cards. In the card game, you have to banish your entire hand, and I think everything on your field on top of that, and you get to draw 2 cards. It's stupid. I mean, obviously, Card of Sanctity as it was in the anime was quite literally a plot device, but it at least made things kind of interesting, and neither player was at a significant disadvantage. Well, maybe the turn player was at a bit more of an advantage. And it's interesting to note that in some games, some monsters actually get abilities while some monsters lose them. For example, in the Sacred Cards, Man-Eater Bug loses its flip ability, but Doron, which is a fairly basic normal monster with no real abilities to speak of, can clone itself for its ability, which means you can pretty much instantly summon a 2 tribute monster. It's really, really good. Anyway, I've got a bit of downtime, so let's just potter along and get to some bases. So, you're both part of the Resistance. Huh, not quite what I pictured you doing, but then again, I'm in no position to comment. I'm looking for my younger twin sister, although I'm not even sure if she's alive or not. Supposedly her name is Laura. This may just be a wild goose chase, but I have to find her. We are twins after all. What would you boys say to take me along, Things are only going to get tougher from here on out. I'm sure you could use the help. And it'll give me a chance to look around for my sister. Trust me, I won't get in your way. So there we are, Quechua has joined our army, and we can recruit Laura in Chapter 7 of Yugi's story. Since we're about to be the recipient of a pointless rescue, why not talk about a serious one? Rescue Cat made its debut in Flaming Eternity and has reappeared quite a few times over the years due to its surprise usefulness. Way back in the GX era, this card wasn't exactly the most spectacular out there. However, when the Synchro era hit and Beast-type tuners started to emerge, like XX Saber Air Bellum, Rescue Cat became an easy way to bring forth level 6 or lower Synchro monsters. It was incredibly handy. Later on, it would be a great path for rank 3 or lower Ixiz monsters, and even now can still get you a Link 2 monster. Though the game has moved on and hindered its influence a little, Rescue Cat and its allies in the Rescue archetype are still pretty handy options in Beast decks or, well, a variety of decks really. Forget it! Joey, I've wiped everyone out. There's no one left.
Boss, the enemy is being attacked from behind! They're totally disoriented!
What's this?
You left yourself wide open, Marek! What's the matter, Joey? Having trouble? Be glad I've come to save you. Everything good heavens.
Proofread! Ah, that meddlesome witch! I did actually say that. I didn't change my letters, don't worry.
Hey, Marek, thanks for letting me split your army in half like that. Ha ha ha! We've got you completely surrounded. You're the one with nowhere to run now. It's time to clean up this Imperial riffraff, Joey. I'll take this half. The rest is yours. Thanks, Mike. You heard the lady. Let's go.
Fortunately, I seem to have wiped out pretty much everyone. So, Mai will join us at the end of the chapter. That kind of threw me off, so I didn't really have any good voices prepared, and I can't do female voices. I've got stuff planned for one version of Marek anyway, but we are rushing to try and get there before it's Night Adept.
before the Night Adept ability kicks in. Come on, Axe Raider. Get moving. Slowly but surely. So, well, I eventually will, as I said, be showing off sacred cards because there's something so goofy about all those old battles. Oh, wow. Ha ha ha! You've got nowhere to run now! Man, that really does... That picture of Marek makes him look like he's got a black eye. It seriously does look like someone punched him in the eye. At first I thought it was just like eyeshadow or something like that, which is fair enough, and on top of that you do have to wear it in theatre. But then I realised it was around the whole... I suppose there's trying to make him look like he's got sort of creepy shadowed eyes and things. But it just makes him look like somebody punched him in the eye and he's got a shiner. So the reason I'm focusing on Skull Knight is Skull Knight's Lightning Break is going to be a pain in the ass because it can attack all enemies. So, yeah, good job. You attacked my weakest monster with your attack draining ability. Well done. That wasn't very smart. I mean, Garuzas isn't hitting super hard anyway. Alright, this will be out of the picture pretty soon. I can just use Garuzas for healing. Marek's team will hit pretty hard, but if you bring a better Darklands tech... Or you just... Oh, Garuzas doesn't have any healing. Crap. Alright. Well, Rocket Warrior was the healer, that's right. Garuzas isn't going to do much damage. Those two will probably, in all fairness, wind up double-teaming Axe Raider. I'm not stupid. Not entirely stupid. I'm not a complete idiot. Some parts are missing. The AI is also not a complete idiot. Some parts are missing. Speaking of missing... Well, I mean, caution is the watchword, but... I think I'm going to have to put a Tempting Fate counter up there because that, quite honestly, was... It wasn't a bad one, but it still did make me look a bit stupid for being cautious. But then again, you never know. The AI is always unpredictable. Well, I say always unpredictable, but there are actually certain things in the Yu-Gi-Oh games that do tend to make them very predictable. Especially in things like the sacred cards. That's janky as all hell. And even in those older games, you could usually predict what the AI was going to do, depending on what you did, and take advantage of it. This was significantly helpful because the AI also tended to cheat. It could quite often use multiple copies of cards that you couldn't, either because they were just outright banned or limited, depending on the game. They would usually draw their best cards as soon as they needed them. I think there is actually evidence that the fight against Heishin in Forbidden Memories has the deck literally stacked in his favour, and a whole lot of other fiddly things, like generally being able to... If they're not guaranteed to do something stupid, they can generally see what your face-down cards are and will work around that. But hopefully more on Yu-Gi-Oh later, because I keep winding up talking about things that aren't Yu-Gi-Oh because I don't know enough about Yu-Gi-Oh. There we go. Marek has been beaten.
Lord Marek, please! If we don't escape now, we'll never make it! Please, we must hurry!
I'll get you for this, Joey! You too, Mai! You'll both pay dearly for this! So, next mission we're going to meet Mai's monsters, and we will finally get to use a brand new fusion, which I'll set up immediately.
thank you very much for joining me. Until next time, this is Red 2, returning to base.